what's up? It's Saku here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So it's been a while since I've done a video like this where I show a making of some of the things that I do. But since I was going to be working with Sintra and a lot of people don't seem to know it yet, I wanted to share it with you guys so that you guys can see the cool things you can do with this material. A huge shout out to Minque Cosplay Webshop for providing all the materials and letting me show you guys how to work with this. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so this is Sintra aka 4X. It's a plastic, but it's unlike Worbla. When you heat it up, it will not bend every which way. It's much more sturdier and therefore really great for armor pieces or like weapons or shields. It will always come with one side protected by plastic, so before you do anything else, just make sure that you pull that off. Some things that we're going to be using are contact glue, instant glue, quick primer, and of course all the equipment necessary to work with the Sintra. So the first step is to draw on the patterns onto the Sintra. Now make sure that you remember to leave enough space between the patterns so later you can cut between them and it makes it a lot easier. Alright, so now that we've drawn out the patterns, the next step is to cut them out. Now normally you would go along the line of the pattern, but because I'm going to be using a bandsaw from the neighbors downstairs, which allows me to already cut into a specific angle, I'm going to have to leave some space between all of the patterns so that when I go to cut it, I don't cut off more than intended. Of course, I realize not everybody has access to this, so I will also be doing some of the parts without the bandsaw so that I can show you guys what other ways there is to use in order to have an angle in your cut pieces. I cut it out the pieces normally, and now I'm taking them to my downstairs neighbor, Brian Creative Industries, who's letting me borrow their bandsaw. So now that we've cut the pieces, there's a little trick that you can use to make the Sintra bend easier. It is not like Worbla, so when you heat it up, it isn't that easily molded into a right shape. But to have like a corner in it, you can strip away a little piece and then it will bend easier. Time to put it all together. Alright, so we start heating up the Sintra so that it becomes more softer and then it will really go along the form of your shield. I use contact glue to glue everything together and it works perfectly fine. Just remember to wear a mask because at the end of the day, Sintra is still a plastic and it's not the healthiest thing to breathe that in. Now we have the base, but the shield has much more detail. Now in order to have like this depth of the shield, we're gonna put another layer of Sintra on top to create this depth in the shield. So we're gonna cut out these patterns and then trace them onto Sintra again and cut them out. Now these pieces didn't need to be in an angle, which is why I used a normal saw. However, I'm gonna be dremeling the sides so that they look nice and smooth. Time to stick it on. So I'm gonna put them on the shield first and then draw the outline so that I know exactly where I have to stick them once the glue is on, because using contact glue works in the way where you have to put on both sides a bit of glue and have to wait a little bit until it gets tacky, and then you can add it onto each other so that it sticks really well. So now we have the base with the depth on the top, but we're gonna have to have depth on the sides too, which is why we're gonna add an extra layer of Sintra on the sides of the shield so that it will have depth there as well. You will just use your normal patterns, but you'll make them a little bit bigger so that they will stick out on the top side. And then we repeat the whole process. So now that we've done that, you can really see that the shield has some depth, not only on the top but also on the sides, which makes it look exactly like the shield from the anime. You can also sand the edges so that it looks smoother, and I'm gonna show you now how to fill up gaps. In order to fill the gaps, I use epoxy sculpt. Now, epoxy sculpt is a material of which you have to use both components so that they can react to each other to harden. So you take a little bit of the darker and a little bit of the lighter and you start mushing them together. Then you use this kind of mush to fill the gaps in either your shield, your weapons, or your armor. And once it hardens, it becomes really hard and it just sticks everything together. Epoxy sculpt also works great with water, just like clay does, so when you use water it really smoothens it out and it makes it easier to fill the gaps. So yeah, let's go and fill all of the gaps in this shield. Now, while the epoxy sculpt dries, we're going to be working on the chest plate of Naofumi. And in order to do that, we're going to be using the next materials: googly eyes, foam clay, instant glue, contact glue, and of course patterns and Sintra. Alright, time to repeat the whole process! So as you could see with the chest plate, I didn't use the bandsaw but a normal saw. So this is because I wanted to show you guys a different way to get the angles to stick everything together. So right now they're still straight, but we're gonna have to make an angle into the pieces so that we can stick them together, and we're gonna do this by sanding them. By sanding, you can also create this angle, and it's much easier to achieve with either a Dremel or just sanding paper. So this little piece needs to fold, but like I mentioned before, 4X isn't as flexible, so in order to do that, we're gonna cut out again the small pieces so that it folds easily when we heat it up. So a neat little trick is to cut into the Sintra and then heat it up, because the cut will expand a little and then it will give you this depth. You can also use this to put details into your Sintra. It works really well, like you see on this piece. Now the use of the googly eyes. So the googly eyes, I use them to have a bit of these studs on to the armor. You will paint over them and they will actually look like studs. So they will be used on this little birdie thing and on the chest plate as well. Now it's time again to assemble the whole thing like we did with the shield. We're using the exact same approach with the contact glue and just heating it up and just slowly sticking it together. So now we have the base of the chest piece. I sanded the edges so that they are smooth, and I filled up the gaps with epoxy sculpt just like we did with the shield. However, the chest piece has more details and it has a bevel. There are foam bevels available in some of the stores. I did not have it available at this point, so I used foam clay, which works perfectly fine to make the bevel. To stick the foam clay to the chest piece, I used instant glue, which is also what I used to stick the googly eyes onto the Sintra. And that's what we're going to do next to create like this stud feel. Alright, so the chest piece is done. We're gonna stick the little birdie on and we're gonna let the foam clay dry, and in the meantime we're gonna get back to the shield. So in the anime, the shield is attached to the arm without any strings or whatever, but it does have this little bowl. So we're recreating this little bowl on the inside of the shield because that's where we're gonna put elastics later to attach it to the arm. Now that the whole base is done, it's time to put a primer on it. Now Sintra in general doesn't need a primer, but I prefer to use a primer just in case. So therefore you don't have to use a lot of quick spray, but just with 2 or 3 layers you have more than enough. This is what it will look like after 3 layers of quick spray, and now it's ready to get painted. Et voila! This is what it looks like after it's painted. As you can see, I also added in the gem in the middle, which was actually resin printed by my downstairs neighbor, and I added in some lights, which I will show you as well. To add in the light, I used a flashlight from the Action, which are super cheap, and you just dismantle it and use that to add the light into the shield. It has an on and off switch and it just works on batteries. Now to attach the shield to your arm, I used 2 elastics that cross each other because the shield is quite heavy and it needs the support. And I also put another elastic on the bottom so that you can really hold onto it with your hand, which also takes away the weight of your arm. For the chest piece, I used elastics that are attached to the chest piece itself and then close with clickers. Don't laugh at me, I do not know the name for this in English, so I'm just gonna call them clickers, but they're super handy and easy to put on. On this video, however, I did not sew it all together, so you still see the pins, forgive me for that, but yeah, it shows you how I kind of attached everything. And that's it! Now you can go and rock Naofumi. I hope it was useful to you guys, and if you have any questions, just comment it below or message me directly and I will try to get to it as soon as possible. I hope you guys liked the video, and do let me know if you would like to see more of these kind of videos, because I would love to share more of my crafting with you. Big shout out to Minque Cosplay Shop, who provided me with all the materials needed for this tutorial, and yeah, just go check them out. Also, just letting you guys know, I love you and have a great day. Bye!